Now I have to think of it. I always got to start with the clicking. It's Jana and Sara and Jana and Sara and Jana and Sara and you.
Woo! Oh, that's good. And you, I like it. I really like it.
Hopefully somebody else will join us. Otherwise, we can chat forever.
Yeah. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump in, and then if somebody comes, they come, and if they don't, they don't. And and we will start with kind of a recap of last week, it was last week. We talked about mistaken goals that children show us that they have, and that really all behavior is communication, and that this is a really hard time for everybody. And learning to get used to spending all day, every day, even with people that you love, takes a little bit of getting used to, and a little bit of negotiation, and a lot of grace, and a lot of patience on everyone's part. So you are not just learning how to live with your child is learning how to live with you full time. And the dynamics are very different, because during school, when school is in session, children are in school, and parents have this time that they have to get things done without children. And so then when you do spend time with them later in the day, often you're very involved in what they're doing. And that is different. You can't be involved to that same level of engagement when you're with them all the time. You have other things that you have to do, and figuring out how everybody can manage that or negotiate that is tricky. So if you watch part 1, you'll see what we talked about last week with some of those mistaken goals. And today we'll pick up with part 2. What do you want to say?
I have so much to say, but I'm going to try to just, keep it in a nutshell. It is so easy to fall prey to what you think your child is saying, or their facial expression, and you want to jump in and you want to do. But this is the time to really hone in on those parenting skills of letting your child be. Because this time, I was thinking about this last night when I couldn't sleep at 4 a.m., that these are the times that are going to help form your child and how they react, not only now, but for the rest of their lives. So this, even though it doesn't feel like it, is actually kind of a gift. But on top of that, you have to remember that you're a role model, and how you react to this is how your children will learn to react to this. So just keep that in mind. You're going to have moments where you just bomb. I mean, Montessori teachers do all the time. Epic fails all the time.
That's right. But
it's how you recover.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
And and since we know that everyone is going to do that, a really important thing to keep in mind is how you recover, right? Like how you keep yourself from falling flat, or how you stand back up, and being able to model to children that, yes, people lose their tempers sometimes, and this is what we do when we do that. We apologize, we don't equivocate, and we just say, I'm sorry, I'm going to work on that, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean that way. I was snapping because I felt frustrated or stressed about something else, and I'm going to work on that.
Life lessons. Life lessons.
Yeah,
life lessons.
That's right.
For when you're in your meeting with your boss, or you're meeting with your partner, or, like, this is the stuff that life is made of. Forget those worksheets.
Yes. Forget the worksheets. Yeah. Our children.
And the online apps.
These children are in preschool. So really, if they have love and they have safety, they have what they need. If their needs are being met, they have what they need, and anything else is kind of icing on the cake. And that children get a lot out of just preparing, eating, and cleaning up from having meals with you, from you reading to them. Please don't put pressure on them to read, and from being able to play. And those 3 things are really, they're going to take care of it during this time. And then later, after you get into a rhythm and everybody's kind of established, a sense of routine, then if you wanted, at some point you could add some other very simple things in, but it's just not a requirement. And we also want to stress that we know that at this time, that children are going to be probably spending more time on watching TV. And that is just a thing. And that you can feel confident that if you can watch something that moves slowly, so it has real people talking in real time, or it's based in reality, in the sense that Daniel Tiger is, like, for instance, there's an episode where they learn how crayons are made. Like, that is great TV. Mr. Rogers is great TV. PBS Kids is great TV. So if you need to
You
lean
get
on
paid by
TV,
Mr. Rogers?
I'm
Because
sorry,
you're always, do you get paid by Mr.
I
Rogers?
do not, but I just know that what he did for children on television was kind of a game changer. And
No,
there's
I know.
not, it's really, well, just to explain it, because that's a good point,
Okay.
is that it's not, he had the best interest of children at heart. And so he wasn't really concerned about marketing anything, or, and it's just quality shows that, my own kids, I would be fine with them watching that for hours, especially if you have a
Yeah.
meeting or you need to get things done. You can lean on that. And it's okay. Children will live. This is a pandemic. This is kind of a big thing going on. Um, so shall we start with our next two categories? Boom, boom.
Let's do it.
Okay,
Let's do it.
let me
Let's
share
do
my
it. Do it.
screen
Do it.
right here. And I'm just taking this from a presentation that I give. Let's see if I can do this. Does that work?
That is great. Just make sure that our heads are not in the way of the
Well,
reading.
I'll probably have to move them around a little bit,
Okay.
just because, oops,
Ooh,
I don't need that one. Hang
we're
on.
the talking heads.
We are the talking heads. Let me get out of here,
Okay.
and I will move us over to this one because we've done the top two, and let's see if that works. Ready? So we're going to work on revenge and assumed inadequacy today. So this chart, in case you weren't here last time, the mistaken goal chart kind of is, it helps you understand what possible goals for communication are when children make bids for attention or connection, and you can base your response on your feelings about their bids for connection or attention. And I said this in the last one, I'll say it again. This is a document that I had taped inside the closet or the cabinet in my classroom for the entire time that I was teaching. So it's not something that you read one time and then you're kind of done with it. This is an ongoing process of recognizing how you can meet each other's needs and how you can learn to cooperate when children are not willing to, or not cooperating in a way that you need them to at that time. And it gives you ideas about what they really need, and then tells you exactly what you can say. So if the mistaken goal, we're going to start with revenge. If the mistaken goal is revenge, if the child's mistaken goal is revenge, and that means like to get even, the person or the parent or the teacher feels hurt or disappointed, maybe even disbelieving or disgusted. And then you tend to react by retaliating or getting even, or thinking, about the child, how could you do this to me? And then when you do that, then the child's response is to also retaliate. The behavior becomes more intense, and they escalate the same behavior, or they choose something that would be hurtful, something else that would be hurtful. The belief behind the child's behavior is, I don't think I belong, so I'll hurt others as the same way that I feel hurt. And they also have this feeling that they can't be liked or loved. So we're going to be very cognizant of the messages that we might unintentionally give children, and so that we can avoid them, if possible, receiving this feeling and acting in those ways. So what we understand is, when a child is trying to get revenge, that the message that they really have is, I am hurting, and I need you to validate my feelings. And what I would do when I recognized one of the behaviors that a child was having, that didn't mean that I would still know instantly what to do right away. And so if I remembered, I would go into the cabinet or the closet and look and see, I feel revenge. This child's message is, I'm hurting, validate me. So when someone is doing something hurtful, remember that they are hurting. And then you can do these specific things in the last column that might help you. And one of those is just to acknowledge the child's hurt feelings. So say, oh my goodness, when somebody left you out, that hurt your feelings. I bet that did hurt your feelings. That would hurt my feelings too. So you're going to validate what they're feeling. Instead of telling them it's okay, which is not helpful because it actually does hurt them, go ahead and validate what they're feeling, because those feelings are real. And we don't want to try to get children to not pay attention to their feelings. We're going to acknowledge them and then deal with them in productive ways. So you can avoid feeling hurt. So one thing you can do is to remember that this is not about you. This child did not wake up in the morning thinking, how can I make the person who I love most in the world upset with me? They didn't think that, it wasn't their plan to have you be angry or upset with them. So don't take it personally if they are doing something where you feel like they are trying to take revenge on you and you are hurt by that. I would suggest that you avoid punishment and retaliation. So it is a natural inclination to want to punish somebody who is doing something like that. I have had a child before who would be very aggressive, and he would get very frustrated and be very aggressive. And it is your inclination to be upset when someone is trying to do something to you. What I realized is that he wanted connection and communication, and he was hurting. And so I would just try to build trust with him. I would say, I can see you are really upset, and I am here if you need a hug, or if you want to sit with me, I am here. And at first he needed to learn that that is what I really meant. And even though he continued to have struggles, we were able to move through those more quickly because I was able to recognize what he really needed. So instead of like engaging with him, it is more successful if we just kind of acknowledge the hurt, refrain from doing something that would also be hurtful or contribute to more feelings of hurt, and try to make a bid for connection like that. Build trust with the child, making sure that you follow through with what you are saying that you're going to do, and being very consistent. Use reflective language so that you are showing them, you are giving them the words that they don't have when they are acting out. So when like we talked about before, when you were talking about, it was really disappointing when somebody said that they would come over or call us and they didn't do that. That is very disappointing, and it can hurt your feelings a lot. I know it would hurt my feelings. I would feel let down. I would feel like disappointed. And I get it. I bet that's how you're feeling right now too. What can we do about that? Do you want to write a letter? Do you want to draw a picture? Do you want me to sit with you? Do you want to go for a walk? Just making sure that you're available for that. Having them tell you, tell me how you feel. Can I listen? Is there anything you want to say about this? And then sharing your feelings. I was hurt. That hurt me. And I don't want to be hurt. And I wouldn't let anybody hurt other people. And I don't want anyone to hurt me. Making amends when you do something wrong. So saying, I know, I told you we would be able to do that, and we aren't able to do that. And that is disappointing. And I bet you are frustrated, and I am so sorry. I wish I had realized that I wouldn't have been able to do that. Or I wish that that thing had not come up so that we couldn't do this. And I want to let you know that I'm going to try to keep that from happening in the future. I'm going to do my best. Show that you care, just in little ways all the time, showing that you care, not just when the child is making this bid for connection. So now that you know that this is how this child feels, then in general, you can do more of those things that are going to build connection and create attention with the child. Hey, Tal. We are just going through these, so we'll just keep going for right now. Act and don't talk. So instead of getting into a conversation where you're arguing with a small child who is upset, I'm going to ask that you keep yourself from doing that. Take some big breaths. You can really talk about what the child's strengths are. I've noticed that you are a kid. who is really strong and able to move these things very carefully. Can you move these things to the back of the house for me or with me? Making sure that you're, if you do that with them, then you're making connection with them and you're playing off of their strengths. If you notice that your child is very organized, I've noticed that it seems like you are a kid who likes organization. Let's look at the living room and see if there's anything that we can organize. I bet you'll know just what to do. Um, and putting put kids in the same boat, like understanding that everybody gets hurt when things happen like that. Not trying to minimize what they say, but also acknowledging when someone else is hurt. You know, I know that it hurt you when your brother said that when he did something that made fun of you, and it hurt him when you yelled at him or hit him after that happened. And my job is to keep everybody safe. I want everybody to be safe. I love you both, and I know you care about each other. What can we do? And then using family or class meetings. So obviously we're not in school, so this would be a family meeting so that you are addressing the things that come up. So at a time when people are not heightened or upset, then you can say, I've noticed that it tends to be stressful when it's time to clean up before lunch. What are the things that you think that we could do to make it less stressful, to make that transition a little easier? So you can do that as a group and you can do that individually with the children. So it may be that they need you to give them a heads up about when it's time. Or it may be that they need more time to plan when that transition is going to happen. So oftentimes, in school, everything is really predictable. So when children see that an adult is going to sit down and read a book, they know that they can start cleaning up and go and join them. So if we were to say, okay, right now we're doing this, and that's going to cause a flurry of activity in the classroom, it's going to be stressful. Children are going to be worried they're going to miss something that's going to happen, and that creates tension, and children are more likely to act out. And not have that, they just don't have the executive function skills yet. Their brains are not developed. And so we have to have realistic expectations for what children are capable of doing. And we just keep in our minds that all behavior is communication, and we just kind of want to build a relationship based on trust, so they know that we're always going to be fair as we can be. And we are going to apologize when we do something that's when we blow it in some way. And guess what, everybody will. We all blow it, and being able to recover from that in a way that preserves the dignity of the child. So we don't want to shame them in front of their siblings. If you are redirecting a child in a way that is very harsh in front of their siblings, they're going to be less likely to think about what you're saying to redirect them, and they're going to be more likely to be thinking about how they're embarrassed, and this is going to make them mad, and you're less likely to get cooperation. So when something happens, it's important that you act, and instead of yelling, you can act. By the first thing I would do is, if someone loses their temper in the room and is doing something that is not okay or safe, then I would look at the other people in the room and say, I'm going to ask that you walk into the other room right now. We're going to have a conversation. So just very calmly help the other people out of the room, and then you go and sit down. Remember, we talked the first time about being just sitting down so that you're not leaning over and there's no intimidation happening, so that you can figure out what's going on and say, oh my goodness, I see you are upset. Let's talk about what's going on. Were you upset when they were talking to you like that? So asking questions, giving them language to explain, and making sure that you preserve their dignity by having conversations as often as you can in private. And that can also mean just lowering your voice. Oftentimes I will make it so that children are not watching other children talk to have a tough conversation, because they feel like people are looking at them or looking at you talking. So just be very aware of how you are positioned in the room and who can hear your conversation. And just think about it this way, like, how would you, if you were having your worst moment of the day, how would you like to be redirected? How would you like somebody, let's say it's your boss or your supervisor, how would you like them to redirect you? Would you like them to redirect you in front of other people? Would you like them to do that privately if possible, or quietly if you can't leave the room? So those are the things that I would think about with that. And then schedule special time for connection. So it may be that in the morning they get up and you can read a book with them while nobody's awake, or maybe somebody's sleeping and somebody else is awake, and you still have that bid for, or that moment where you can really connect with them. Because if you are full then you're going to be able to be more resilient in those times of stress. But if you're already stressed and you're not feeling connected, then you're going to be more likely to have those times of struggle. Sarah, do you have anything to say about revenge?
I do. I'm going to try not to be redundant, but I'm sure I will be. I
Repetition is the
want,
key to mastery, you know.
yeah.
Go
Mm,
ahead.
mm. Um, I just want to remind folks that children are rarely conscientiously plotting revenge on you. They are so honest and blunt, and they say what they need to say, often without any filters, and their intentions are not to hurt your feelings. And sometimes, as guardians or family members, we tend to get upset and take everything personally. And like you said, Jana, you cannot take things personally because they're not meant to be taken personally. Children don't understand the nuances of language, and they don't know that saying things like "I hate you" and "you're so mean" and "you're crazy," or throwing something at you, they don't fully understand everything that is involved in this.
Hmm.
They also don't understand how we feel. So, not escalating things, not getting hurt, and remembering that children are just being honest, and that we play a part in this too. And so we can try to de-escalate and do everything that Jana spoke about. This is a tough one, and I often want to remind parents that it's actually your place to be the one who maintains the order and the boundaries and the language, and that your child is your child and they're not really your friend,
Hmm.
and that they need you to treat them with love and dignity and respect, like you mentioned, Jana. And two, that you have to be the role model when you're feeling hopeless or when you're feeling incompetent or angry, or just try to take a step back and understand where your child is coming from. And as you were talking, Jan, I was thinking books about feelings are really important, especially right now.
Hmm.
Um, Todd Parr has some great books about feelings, and a perennial favorite for me is When Sophie Gets Angry.
Mm.
Really, really. But just talking about reading the books, and then even sometimes mentioning to your children, when I was little, I used to get really angry too, and mention similar situations so that your children feel less alone, and so they know that you can relate to them.
Hmm.
Then there's
Yes.
one more piece that I'm thinking as I talk with children. Sometimes I use too much language, and I have to kind of invite myself to say less, because less is more with 3 to 6 year olds. So
Yes. I think
that's what I wanted to add.
I think that's great. And I want what you said made me think of something, is that oftentimes, or it is not uncommon with the language around bullying to use that kind of terminology around about children. But what I would say to you is that even if you go to the government website on bullying, that children below 6 are not bullies. Children below 6 are trying to learn how to communicate. So I would invite you not to use that language. I would invite you to think of it more as a bid for communication and an expression of a feeling of not belonging, because in a child who is hurt. Because calling a child a bully creates a mindset for yourself and for other people, and gives you a kind of understanding of someone that you don't want to be in relation with. And it is so, as far as the psychologist goes, it is not possible for a 6-year-old, 6 and under, to be bullies, because they are learning how to communicate. So they're just really not, they just don't have the finesse that we have, because they don't have the executive function skills that we have. And so they're more likely to be impulsive and say things that they don't do. Sometimes revenge can be being hit. They don't feel like they belong, and so they will hit you. And sometimes it can be something as simple as being not invited to a birthday party and they don't like you anymore. Or they can use words that maybe they've heard you use, but that children, maybe we don't hear children use a lot. And so, when you hear a child say words in frustration that you hear adults say, and I'm talking mostly about curse words, I would invite you to have a kind of a controlled response and understanding that they are understanding that language has power and that you can respond to that in a way that does not give language more power than you want it to have. So saying things like, I know that you're upset and your feelings are hurt, and I want to help you work on that. I wouldn't focus on for me personally, I wouldn't focus on the cuss words because they have as much power as you let them have, and they really are just words, and they've heard it somewhere. It didn't come out of thin air. They've heard it and they're trying it on. And so don't make your reaction to those words the thing that the child is going to focus on. If that's how they're getting a response from you, then that is that they're more likely to continue it. So remember that you can talk later about things, that ground rules that your family has, and you can come back to that, and your child eventually will learn that anyway. So I wouldn't focus too much on those kinds of things. And I've been uninvited for reminding children about ground rules. I've been uninvited from birthday parties. I've been told that I'm not their friend anymore. And that's just how they feel in the moment. And frankly, if we look at ourselves honestly, that's how we feel too. Sometimes we feel like we aren't, we're like, I don't want to be your friend. Um, and that may be a thing that they feel as well. And that's okay. So don't get too hung up on it. That's just how they feel in the moment. And they will move forward. Um, okay, that's great. So assumed inadequacy, and this is for the child who wants to give up or be left alone, and the parent kind of feels despair or hopeless or helpless or inadequate themselves. They don't know how to do it. And so what the parent tends to do is they give up or they do something for the child, or they're over helping the child. So they are unintentionally contributing to the idea that the child cannot do it by doing it for the child. And this is really easy to get into. This is really an easy one to fall into. And oftentimes the child will retreat further. They will become passive. You will not see improvement, and there won't be a response to what you're trying to do. So you're thinking that doing things for them, or maybe you think it's too hard, so you do the whole thing for them, is helpful, but it really reinforces that belief that they are inadequate. And so we're going to try to kind of flip that a little bit and do something different. The belief behind the child's behavior is that they can't belong because they're not perfect. So they convince others not to expect anything, because if you don't expect anything, then you can't be disappointed. And this is the way that they see they can go about it. So they are helpless. And they feel like the message that they're saying is they're unable, and they feel like there's no use trying because they won't do it right. And I have seen, I have worked with, and I'm sure you have too, Sarah, over 1,000 children in the last almost 30 years. And the children watch how parents self-talk. So if a parent is saying, oh, I can't do that right, or oh, I'm no good at this, or those kinds of things, children pick up on the language that the parent uses about themselves, even if the parent doesn't use that language with children. So if you have assumed inadequacy in your own behaviors and communications, you are more likely to see that same assumed inadequacy with children. And so really be aware of what you are saying, because children will do as you do, not as you say. So the first thing I would say is be kind to yourself. And the coded message from the child is, don't give up on me, and show me a small step. So they might feel like maybe if a parent has their own tendencies towards perfectionism, a child might be less inclined to take a chance because they might not get it right or do it perfectly. And so you really have to model being okay with taking things in small steps and making sure that mistakes are okay. It's really not a big deal. So you're going to break things down for children. So the parent teacher, the proactive and empowering response would include breaking a task down into small steps. So instead of giving a list of things that need to be done as part of the sequence, just say one thing at a time. So stop criticizing, stop all criticism, it says, and that means yourself included. So stop criticizing yourself and stop making corrections or small criticisms about what they do. If you it is not a big deal. Children are trying and learning right now, and any mistakes that they make are not going to be established patterns that they have as adults at 30 years old. They are learning. There are going to be mistakes. Montessori said that you need to develop a friendly relationship with error. And so you have to think about error as giving feedback. So when people make mistakes, they are more likely to not repeat that mistake next time when they're trying to learn how to do a task than if they got it right the first time. Because if you could get it right on accident, but when you don't get it right, you will modify that behavior over time and you actually learn the skill or concept even more deeply. So if they're washing dishes and there's a little bit of dirt on it, who cares? They're washing the dishes. That's the step that you want. If they're cleaning up their room and the bed's not made well, it doesn't matter. We are working toward this. It's a continuum of interaction. So encourage any positive attempt. That's what I was just talking about. So if they're making steps, if they're making baby steps progress, we don't need to comment on that except to say, thank you. Thank you. And remember that children have differences. So some children are really capable, and that's going to be a child who's, a different personality type. So remember that these things are going to be based on the personality type of the child. But if the child is passive and not likely to engage because they're not a risk taker, then we're really going to acknowledge the little steps that they're making. Oh my goodness, you are a kid who took a chance and persevered. Oh my goodness, you were a kid who was in this house and really worked on making up that bed. So you can say things positively and noticing what they're saying, even without praise. You don't have to say good job. Montessori schools tend to not do that anyway. But you can acknowledge what they're working on and kind of celebrate with them. Not praising is not the same as not acknowledging, and it's not the same as not celebrating their goals. So focus on their assets. So if they know where everything is in the house, if they remember where things are, if they can always find the car keys, they always remember that the dog needs to be walked, whatever their skills are, and they have them, whatever they are, I would really notice those and talk about. That's really helpful. I know that you're a person that always remembers when we need to take the dog out or always remembers to let the dog back in. And I am so grateful you are here. What would we do? And then teach skills or show how. So be aware that none of us learned how to do anything well the first time, and that our great memories of childhood, if we think about our relationship with adults, they were adults who took the time to show us things, who really saw us for what we were and wanted to give us positive feedback and encouragement on that. And that's how you focus, knowing that it's going to take a long time and you don't have to do it for them. So don't step in and do it for them. They can do it. Believe in them that they can do it. And just enjoy the child. If you can take a big breath and find something in this child that you can celebrate and really notice, then they are going to know when you are feeling that. You cannot hide it, and your feelings will be very obvious. So just find something to enjoy with them and then build on their interests. What do they love? Everybody, I will tell you, here's a secret. If you want people to think that they're your friend, listen to them talk about themselves. So listen to a child talk about themselves or what they love, and they feel connected with you. That's the same thing for grown-ups too, by the way. And then encourage, encourage, encourage. I believe in you. You can do this. And then, of course, plan in advance with those little meetings or gatherings. And it doesn't have to be like a formal gathering. It can be like when you're talking over lunch or dinner when everybody's together. And then again, schedule special time. And that doesn't mean that you have to say, I'm going on, just this time, we're going to have this protected time. You don't have to plan it. Just make sure you do it. You don't have to plan it. And that way, if something comes up, you're not breaking your promise. You can just make sure that you touch, that you're in connection with your child or each of your children. just a few minutes a day is all it takes to fill a bucket. That's all it takes to fill an emotional bucket. You don't have to plan it. You don't have to say this is special time. You can just do it. And that is going to be helpful. So what do you think, Sarah?
I think what you said is so helpful, and like little nuggets of wisdom for you to take throughout your day, and to remember that you might aspire to do all of this, but you're not going to get there right away, and that is okay. Be really patient with the children and be really patient with yourself. This opportunity is a time to strengthen your relationship with your child by giving them the space to express themselves and be themselves, and then helping to build them up so that eventually they can function with absolute success. Understand that you are the role model. Jana, you talked about role modeling, and also your body and how you carry your body and what you do with your body sends messages too. A lot of Montessori teachers will keep their hands behind their backs and they walk really slowly because children are absorbent minds, as we know. They're taking in every little thing that we do.
Mhm.
I was thinking about, as you were talking, how this staying home deal is becoming more permanent. And I was thinking that we might start to see behaviors. After a while, this is less of the honeymoon period has worn off, and we might start to see some regression, more crying, maybe some bedwetting, some more sensitivity of your child. So reminding them, as Jana said last week, I love you, and giving a hug and showing that nurturing side, being really flexible with your children and understanding they're not trying to trip you up and they don't have ulterior motives. They're just being who they are. And at the
Yeah.
same time, being really patient with yourself and dealing with your emotions. They're going to ebb and flow and going to be bigger than they usually would be. Just be super, super patient with yourself
Yeah.
the whole time.
And this is, and we're talking about typical families. If you have a child who has come to your family and they've experienced trauma, or your family has experienced trauma, there are going to be added layers of difficulty. And I would really recommend. I know some people may have seen Colleen's post, but Colleen, who runs Trauma Informed Montessori, has some great information and resources. And so I would absolutely go find her on Instagram for one, and see if you can, or you could go to her website. I think is traumainformedmontessori.com, I think. But Colleen Wilkinson, you can find her, and she's great, and she will be helpful in helping you kind of look at things with a trauma informed lens. Frankly, everybody's experiencing trauma right now. So it wouldn't hurt to keep that in mind, that you're going to see behaviors that you haven't seen because your child is not able to intellectualize what is happening. They are having grief. You're having grief over the fact that your lives aren't the same. And so again, just being really patient with yourselves, and planning time that you can just kind of relax. Remember that for children ages 3 to 6, you don't have to do school. You can talk to your child's teachers and find out the things that you think would be best for you to do at home. But other than that, you don't have to do that. And so if it's just causing you stress to think of those things, then skip it. Skip it for right now. You don't have to do that. Your child is safe. Your child is loved. Your child is fed. And those are the things that are going to make your child be okay. And they have you. They have a child they have a parent who cares and loves them, cares about them and loves them, and it is going to be okay. So as many times as you need to, you should reach out to your friends, because your friends will talk to you in a way that you really should be talking to yourself. They're going to say, this is hard. This is really hard for everybody. You're a good person. Everybody's doing the best they can. I know you love your kids. Do what you need to do with your family, and just kind of relax as much as possible. So if everybody needs to take a nap, take a nap. If everybody needs to go for a walk, go for a walk. If you need them to turn on the TV and watch TV, turn on the TV, watch TV so you can have a moment. Whatever you need to do right now to make this safe is going to be great. And I think that's all we have for this right now. I'm going to stop sharing and see, close out of this.
I want to say, don't be afraid to ask us any questions. If there's anything that's on your mind, Jana and I and the other admin moderators are checking questions and answering questions all day long. We're trying to support you. And like Jana said, you're not trying to replicate school. You're trying to provide a warm, loving environment for 3 to 6-year-olds, and maybe your elders that you have can be more of the teachers and teach lessons and help your littles, but you're just trying to follow your child's interests and read books and have conversations and go with the flow and do your own work. And Catherine McTammany wrote a piece yesterday that she posted on our page about fostering independence for your children so that they can start to get used to this new normal of working while you're working. So check that out too.
That's great.
And yeah.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording, and then we can keep talking. Okay.
There you go.
Bye, everybody. Have a good day. Bye. Be kind to yourself. Remember, big breaths and baby steps. It will all be okay.